Good day, everybody. Right, so we're going to move straight into organizational development and week one. By now, you should have read the articles that I had posted on our Google Classroom, so you should have a sense of what organizational development is about. So this video is really just going to be a brief introduction to it all and what it entails and what we'll be looking at for the remainder of this term. Right. Okay, so I've got a couple of quotes here that have come out of your unit one. But basically, what you can see, the highlighted word that stands out on that page is effectiveness. So, organizational development is about making an organization more effective. So, French and Bell call it organization development is a systematic process for applying behavioral science principles and practices in organizations to increase individual and organizational effectiveness. Okay, and Richard Beckett, organizational development is an effort that is one, planned, two, organization wide, three, managed from the top to increase organizational effectiveness and health through planned interventions in the organization's processes using behavioral science knowledge. So that one by Richard Beckett is probably an easier one to understand, but basically what it's saying there is that organizations, if they want to be effective, if they want to be impressive and competitive in today's markets, they need to be led from the top and ensure that they implement plans that allow them to change and adapt to the world's changing circumstances. Right, so what is an effective organization? If you look at the picture there, you can see it's hinting at what an effective organization should be doing, starting off small and growing and growing and growing. So it's one where the business strategy, the people, and the processes work together for increasing success. So it's one where you take your business strategy and you look at the way the company is being run and you say to yourselves, are we being effective? Are we doing the best job that we can do? Or are we noticing changes that are happening in the greater world around us that we need to adapt to in order to become more successful? So, an effective organization is able to identify changes that are happening out there in the world and to bring those changes in and apply them to their business strategy, motivate people to change, and motivate ways of finding processes that will work more effectively. So, so that the company is growing and is being hugely successful. All right, so it's important to understand that what we're looking for here in organizational development is how do businesses go about approaching organizational development and organizational change. And from an HR perspective, it's obviously about managing the people part of that change. So what we're going to be looking at are basically these 5 steps, and these are in your course books along with descriptions, but just to emphasize it, the 5 basic steps of organizational development involve data collection. So that's looking at your current situation and it's getting your employees to analyze where you're at right at this moment. And where you fit into the industry as a whole, both within maybe your province, your city, your country, the world. And so you collect a whole lot of information about that. And then step 2 is about data feedback and confrontation. So that is working with the data and deciding like what information is important and relevant for us and what do we need to be thinking about bringing on board. And what should we think about changing in our business in order to drive success, which takes you to step 3, which is really where your senior business managers look at developing an action plan and moving through with that action plan. And the use of intentions is looking at how you're doing, how it's all going, implementing, and continuously learning from those, which leads you to the evaluation and follow-up. Like any business process that you ever put in place, you you evaluate it and say, has it worked? Which parts worked well? Which parts worked less well? What do we need to be looking at developing further and growing with? Okay, so all processes end with a follow-up. And if you remember from the definitions that we looked at earlier, it said it was a scientific approach. Okay, so the scientific approach comes from the data collection and analyzing it rigorously, and then using that information to drive forward new changes in your business. Right. At this point, I want you to pause the video and I want you to look at those 4 words there: competitive, learning, culture, and promoting. I want you to pause the video now, write down those words, and I want you to try and think about what those words mean. Like, what is your understanding of those words? Okay, so pause it. Right, okay, so you're back from pausing your video. Have you written down definitions? Have you thought about what these terms mean? What does the word competitive mean to you? Okay, it should, somewhere along your line, you should have some understanding that competitive is about understanding what the competitors in your industry are doing, but it's more than that. It's about what sets you apart from them, what makes your business better than their business. Okay, what's going to drive that change in your organization? Okay, learning. We've covered this quite extensively this year. A learning environment is one where you encourage your staff to always be seeking new information, always be trying to understand the way in which your organization operates, always encouraging them to go on training courses and expand their horizons and thinking. Culture is is the way in which your organization operates. It's the feeling that you get from working in that business, or the feeling that you get from when you interact with that business. So I always think about Google, and their culture is one of encouraging people to learn and to be creative. And so they call it googliness. So they even have a term for their culture, but their culture is always about driving to be different and learn new stuff and promote learning. So that's what their culture stems from. Whereas the culture in a bank, like maybe Investec Bank, for example, would be more formal and structured. They're dealing with lots of people's money. They're dealing with putting it and investing it safely and securely. So their culture is going to be one of intelligence, one of being serious about things. So very different to the googliness of Google, but both of them would have to be about striving to be better, to striving to be competitive in their industries, to be the best at it. Okay, and promoting really is another word for encouraging people to do something. So if you look at the top of this page, it's organizational learning. So we put all of those things together to develop a learning organization where learning is driven or promoted by management. There's a culture of always wanting to be out there in the front and being competitive and being the best that you can be. Okay, so do you think an organization would be more competitive if they promoted a learning culture? Okay, so if you think about the 2 examples that I've just given, where learning is encouraged, then the answer would be yes. An organization that encourages people to learn, to strive, to explore, to see new things is one that is able to adapt to changes, and is one where organizational development often happens. Where you at the forefront of new technology and that sort of thing driving business forward. Okay, so what are the features of a learning culture? And we covered this earlier this year for those of you doing learning and development. It's where you see change as a positive prospect for learning and development. Okay, so you encourage people to learn and develop, and with it will come about new ideas and new ways of doing things. You promote lifelong learning as a value, so you're always encouraging people. And learning, remember, learning doesn't only have to be about going on a course and studying something in a course. It can be that you find a mentor within your organization and you meet with that person once or twice once or twice a month, and they teach you new things about business or your industry. Okay, so learning happens in many different ways. It's not just in the form that you are doing now. Okay, a learning culture identifies problems as an opportunity to improve. It facilitates learning throughout the organization. So it doesn't matter what level you're on, you are always encouraged to be learning and doing new things. And here we go, implements mentoring and coaching programs to allow employees to learn from one another. So learning happens in many different facets, not just on a training course, but also within your immediate working environment. Okay, so a learning culture is one. If you want to live a top shelf life, then you need to stand on the books you have read. Never stop learning, never stop growing. So, in other words, read, 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 because reading is places where you develop new ideas and new knowledge. And there is a wealth of stuff that you can read out there. And that is the reason why I also gave you the articles to read on organizational development. Okay, when you read, you start understanding things that go on beyond your world. So please, 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 you cannot underestimate the value of reading. Okay, guys, so that was that for this little introduction into organizational development. I'm going to post this video, and there will also be some activities that you can do that will help you work with this material. Okay, keep watching Google Classroom because there will be more videos coming out.